Julie here with Juristalis Moon, Venus, hour, Saturn day. Now we have a stellium in Aries in the 7th house. And usually when we have a stellium somewhere, it's also important to balance it with the opposite house. And the opposite house is Libra. So from this point, I was talking about Libra through the houses and what is justice to people when from that perspective. Now what happens where somebody has a stellium in Libra? Famous people with stellium in Libra would be Beyonce knows. Um, and this means that many aspects of life, let's say we have Saturn in Libra, we would have both the themes of Aquarius and Capricorn and their respective houses. So let's say the native of this, if this chart was person, they would have issues of housing, upbringing, motherland, and issues of children, hobbies, um, yes, technology and so on, or leisure technology, leisure time, both incorporated into their Libra house. So, of course, we need to look at what house is this Libra at, which gives us the house where Libra is, would give us where in the life do we, how should I say that, if the houses were locations, where is the court located? And so where do we try to balance the things? Let's say somebody has a stellium in Libra um, in the 12th house, like Beyonce, or in the first house. So stellium in Libra, let's say in the first house, um, the person in their path would constantly be busy trying to balance many things, and it can be through their even fitness, physical body, beauty standards, um, the business of being themselves, the whether they've been right or wronged in life, or how do, and people may turn to them for justice. Um, Now, all of these planets are all the places people can come to them for justice. If you have like a Libra 7th house, you can have a person that is open enemy, and they say, you are the lawyer, you tell me, how do I represent myself in front of you? um, and or you could have even a partner where the relationship is, if the other planets are coming, let's say from the 4th house or the 10th house, then ruler of the 10th or 4th in Libra, then your parents, your bosses might be coming to you for justice, but of course there can be issues to balance with those people. People have stellium in Libra, they can experience tremendous misjustice, but also seeing a lot of justice done. For example, Um, if a person, for example, doesn't have planets in Libra and Venus is not so well aspected for them, they might be experiencing life through the lens of justice doesn't. Wow. So much so that they would not even turn to the juristic system. Um, and so um, people that have better aspects to Venus or to Libra, very simply put, unjust as it may, might get more from the juristic system, even if there was, let's say, if there is bad aspect, then they can experience something that makes justice not possible, or the juristic system is not really accessible or representing of them. But with other aspects, they may experience that, oh, eventually when they are kind of like forced into court, actually the court is in their favor. But they can unalive themselves in the process, so so I wouldn't necessarily force them into court. um, and um, more to say, let's say, the challenge with stellium in Libra is that, yes, these people will see places that where that need the, they will see places that were unjust, um, and a lot of it, but they will also see places that were just. Um, by the way, 8th house Libra can simply mean that the justice system is trauma. For example, this is why only when Jupiter was in Libra, the Me Too came out, because it's impossible to have justice for these things in the juristic system, and I think also today. Um, the stellium Libra can feel like um, so it's actually really good for people that do jurisdiction, because then the stellium simply goes to many files, a deck of files on their table to balance. Um, Sometimes they can run companies or even accountant companies or investment companies, because they simply need to have this stellium manifesting as something other than the whole world and the spouses coming to uh, the court that is what, and now here is the thing. If it's 12th house, it can be in their dream state. They can be dealing with, um, like, they can even be dealing with dreams, or people think, if you think about how many helpless people call, particularly when it comes to bedroom issues, and how many people call for to protect from rape in astral, or to protect from rape if this person is lost or isolated. These people can see that in their dreams. First of all, they may have themselves a lot of issues with that, but they can also see that in dreams, like, why did you not protect me? Why did you not this? Why did you not that? Um, it's not impossible that if these people as children, anybody with 12th house stellium would be, yeah, but it's not impossible that these people would, because it's the astral realm, that such children um, in infanthood or can be very targeted. It's like an infant is born and everybody is like, stop the rape, stop the rape, stop the rape, and they don't even know what is rape. And I have Uranus in 8th house in Libra, Urania in 8th house in Libra. So it's basically the astrology of of these things. Um, um, 8th house, Stellium Libra, for example. I go over the difficult houses not to scare anybody, but because those are the houses that really need that. So Libra 8th house, um, of course, the classical issues of having to accommodate for everybody. Um, and 8th house is usually the after one-to-one. So we usually think of 8th house as, well, the ancestry, the lineage, but stellium means into the one-to-one relations, the entire chart arrives. These people can have temples, they can be of court of secret society. Also the 12th, okay. Um, and and yes, this can be people that or have accountants firm that can be um, 6th house. For people in 6th house Libra, stellium, it means that these people may have very difficult health to do with kidneys. Um, a stellium can also be a bit like an outer planet in a sign. When an outer planet, now some people say, oh, outer planets are generational planet. When an entire generation is all up in your, let's say, 8th house, 9th house, 12th house, 6th house. For example, I have Pluto in the 12th house. Yes, I try to go to sleep, a symposium in my bedroom. I cannot go to sleep, attempt to rape me. Why? Pluto is in Aquarius. Um, but this is the type of atmosphere where people have stellium, then it can feel like an entire society has to be, um, how should I say, addressed at this particular. So sixth house, it can really affect the health because there's so much workload in that. It can also mean any stellium in sixth house can mean the person is becoming sick because of work. Israel has stellium in my sixth house, and I have working disability. Um, yeah, but what is the working disability? Epstein ring, but we can't say it. I didn't want for to be working with those things, so and eventually a pedo ring dropped. Um, and um, here is the caveat with Libra. How should I say it? When we see, particularly when we have stellium through sign, right now, for example, we have stellium through Aries. Everything goes through sovereignty, I am, sovereignty, I am. And what goes through sovereignty, I am? The fact that people were tortured to loss of sense of self. Okay. So stellium in Libra, people might try to balance everything. And certain things are not compatible for such balance. Um, my rule of thumb is if you don't have euthanasia to offer a person, don't do trauma meter on them. Um, so so the difference between let's say having stellium in Libra and not having stellium in Libra is where um, the stellium in Libra will be narrow point of view from the perspective of where is the court, and all of the planets will have to come to that particular place, to the court. If I think about the Me Too, one of the issues around the Me Too, everybody was calling people, oh, so litigate, so come to litigate, so come to jurisdiction. Um, how should I say that? Um, we don't want to use the scales to even the scales is not something that think about the type of offense when somebody cannot communicate well, doesn't remember, doesn't okay. I showed how terrible it is when Libra tries to balance everything through Libra. And now, by the way, these are the same people that said all such things should not be addressed at court, that jurisdiction is no place to deal with. So then when the Me Too happened, with the jurisdiction and due process, okay, so what were people supposed to do? Go to therapy, and the therapist is also and it took Jupiter and Spica. So the bias with the Libra stellium is that and it's not the fault of the person. The court is in depending on the house system, whole sign house. The court is in one house. Placidus, it can be various places, and this can be particularly risky because they could feel like they're offering so many options. But what if those options are not possible because, let's say, if Epstein rings offers so many options for jurisdiction, but all of them are based on treason, rape, and energy siphoning. um, and more so um, having less planets in Libra can create situation where what needs to be balanced doesn't take precedence over all of life, um, and then the person might be aware of more places than, let's say, the court. In fact, increased awareness of that can cause person to feel like, how does the court can even handle that? Even in the most naive way. Um, and that can cause a lot of issues. Um, more things that I can think about. Libra in 12th house can create, is basically a blind spot of a person. And it can also be a situation where people are trying to be, let's say, right with the person, and they might either misinterpret it or not really be able to see that because it's in their 12th house. By the way, even if they have a stellium, the people are trying to be as fair as they can with person, but because it's sitting on their 12th house, then they are used to fear basically the people that were trying to make it unfair for them, and that can be very challenging actually to discern justice from that point of view, just where everybody is calling for that person to do justice or to defend or um, eighth house. It can be where eighth house is what we tend to swipe under the rug, and so eighth house can be places where we tend to swipe under the rug something, and for example, and usually we tend to swipe under the rug. Some people say, okay, they tend to swipe under the rug places where we have wronged, but it goes together. We tend to swipe under the rug places where we were wronged, and because of that, if we have wronged, this would get swiped under the rug as well, because if we need to tend to that, we need to tend to where we were wronged. Because if, let's say, because Libra does try to make things fair, so if, let's say, somebody calls a Pisces ascendant, and it's the 8th house, and then the Pisces ascendant, let's say they've wronged somebody, and so the Pisces ascendant says, wait a second, why did I wrong this person? If they turn to me, they are upset about something. Did I do this thing that they tend to say? If I did, then why did I do that? If I didn't, then why do they think that I did? Um, and then depending on the disposition, for example, I have Venus in the 3rd house and is opposing Pluto in the 9th house. So I would think, okay, the global Epstein international cult and its effect on attempting to confiscate people's, I don't know, passive income, or or for them to not be able to have a psychological support that is not harming them again. And I'm like, wait a fucking second, this is what I was wronged by. And then it's like, okay, the fact that I was wronged by this, what wrongs did it cause to the people around me? Well, maybe me and those people are both eligible to compensation from result of these Epstein dossiers, because all of us were wronged by that. Now, if you're just a private person that, I don't know, felt, I don't know, that they insulted you or something, and then you run into, let's say, Pisces 8th house, and they don't understand what is happening. Now you've turned their attention to their 8th house. All the times that they were wrong, that were swiped under the rug with this Jupiterian benevolence, are now boom, 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 boom. So, and if they have a stellium, no, if they have a stellium, they would somehow, they could probably become like really dissociated. But um, yeah, we think about why Spice so, because they have Libra in the 8th house. And anyway, um, those are, I think, more the hidden houses. Libra's 2nd house can be by the merit that this is house of hates. And so it's, look, first of all, not a lot of people talk about this house of hates. This is where things from astral can materialize into the physical. And this is where people underestimate that there could be problems. But the nature of the 2nd house problems can absolutely be Epstein-like and occultistic, and something that looks like what? There isn't even a term for that. Yes, there isn't even, but our language, there isn't even a term. But the people that do that, they have particular procedures for to do that harm to humanity. Um, yes, I think 4th house is also where people can be like the family constellation stuff, but with um, jurisdiction. Um, this can be people that, now here, fourth house is unprecedentedly difficult. Why? Because the energy has to translate to something. And with 4th house, it's kind of like, what are they going to do? If they have children, then they're going to run into all of this problem with all of their children. If they have real estate, like housing, then it's going to be family constellation with every estate. Let there be no mistake about this. Also, people in 8th house, if people invest in passive income and they have real estate, Falken, you're not housing tenants, you're housing lineages. If you stop seeing people as sheeple, then you will understand you are housing lineages. Some people would say that that was evil, but I think that this evil is not evil, because it's important to it's important to understand that. Now with 4th house stellium Libra, it can be very difficult, somewhat 8th house as well, because if 8th house materializes to estates, but if 4th house, it can be very difficult because the, the stellium has to materialize somehow, and it materializing necessitates tending to the lineages of each of these problems. Whether they are children, yes, people can have, I don't know, 4 children, 5 children. I'm not talking about the breeding farms of Epstein. But this is also the issue, because they have breeding farms, but each of these children have a birthright. Um, and when this is, let's say, housing or estates, um, with 8th house can be businesses, can be like consolidation, like mergers and acquisition. Is consolidation between lineages. Um, Ascendant speaker. Now, here is another thing to think about, because I was thinking, wait, Adolf Hitler had ascendant. He had an outer planet in Libra, the Uranus, but he had ascendant Libra, and then Taurus was his 8th house. But Taurus is also Venus ruled. And so sometimes it can come from Taurus, and one has to accommodate for the planets in Taurus and Libra. Now, here is the drama. Taurus and Libra in conjunct. Capricorn and Aquarius semi-sextile. Aries and Scorpio in conjunct. What am I saying? These are aspects that don't really see one another. They see one another, but it's kind of like, if I think about Mercury in conjunct Mercury. Mercury opposite Mercury is, let's say I have Mercury Aries. So people with Mercury speaker would be incredibly eloquent and so on and so forth. I have Mercury Aries. I tell it like it is, and if I have with issues to phrase something, then I address these issues. People that have Mercury in conjunct Mercury, let's say people that have Mercury first decan Libra, or last decan Scorpio, first decan Sag, would have in conjunct Mercury to me. These people would send one another to communication workshops. um, now just think about, so the 2 people go to court. And these 2 people have lawyers. And then there is the jurisdiction. There are various Mercuries in the court system. The compatibility between the Mercury of the client and the lawyer at the litigation and at the prosecution and the advocacy, those who advocate for, and the Mercuries of the clients, the lawyers, and the judges. So communication is a matter of statistics when it comes to Now, another thing Mercury rules is the details, which means a big part of what we call evidence. So even when all is fine and well, Urania in Libra in the 8th house. The epistemic challenges for juristication, considering just astrology, are beyond paramount. Now, here's the thing about Mercury as spoken by Chiron in Mercury sign. I share this with Habermas, but I have Rahu Chiron. I want to tell you the good story before I begin to tell you the bad stories. Also to myself, because Rahu Chiron, it means that this is pertaining more to the second part of life. When I was in academia, we had reading, they have these courses where we do reading of research of philosophy, politics, and so on. And we were reading Habermas. Because I'm a linguist, Falken, I had to recover from something like being targeted in infanthood. Doesn't, not possible to really date people, not possible to really enjoy intimacy. What did I do? Study. So, so I sit in class and we read Habermas, and the professor is trying to read Habermas. I don't know if he's on Epstein list or not. With me, I do not have problems with him that I know of. He was my instructor for my thesis. And he sits and tries to read Habermas. And he tries to understand what is this guy saying. Now, as linguist, there were things that I studied in linguistics that were making it easier for me to understand Habermas. And because I have zero, how should I say that? Let's just say social interactions is something that's more spontaneous and wounded. So I begin to explain what this is, what this is, what is, and then I saw for the first time in my life a professor hypnotized. And I got to feel, even though I don't know how to develop equation, I got to feel like a person that yes, that was explaining. Actually, it happened to me also in math. But no, the story was like this. We had a friend, and this guy would have been on Epstein list because they asked him to do video with his boyfriend where he violates a child, and then they caught for this video, and so was I told. And anyway, he begins to speak about equations for quantum, and I know only like the philosophy and the logistic of what the theory is. Then there was a mathematical expression that didn't work with the theory correctly, and so because it was so, then I was able to. It's not how we're supposed to do mathematics, because we're supposed to develop the equations, and then the theory is supposed to emerge from the depiction of the reality by the equations. But I was doing it the opposite, and I said to him, but the theory is like that, and this is actually not working with it. And then he actually had a mistake in the equation. So so I got to feel 2 seconds of a genius for a slight split of a second. And um, but this is all much for the good part about what Chiron Gemini. The challenging part. It's a wound around the pre-linguistic phase and language development phase. Very simply put, the wound affects language acquisition. The type of wounds that affect language acquisition are sexual boundary violation, and before people get stressed for one thing, they're like, but I didn't do anything to my child. You did not. The folks that loot the budget of your government did. And that is also language acquisition phase. Um, yep. There was another person that they were the only person I saw talking about this except for me. Then they began to do the funny hand gestures, so I don't know if they were tortured, and now I'm afraid to mention their name because I don't want them to be hurt or something. Um, um, but also it can pertain to technology and language. Uh, Very simply put, Mercury in Aries with Chiron now going through is what people call voice to skull. Now, the technology of voice to skull can, on the one hand, induce be an interface for telepathy, and this is what is in a benefic world. This is what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be able to communicate between nervous system. So let's say a person that has a disability or speech disability can communicate through thoughts, and um, I may have accidentally optimized this interface from targeting to communication. um, and if so, it is interesting because when I was in high school, there were people developing technologies that would help disabled people to communicate. And then I would meet again person that would develop such technologies, but then what these technologies were also used to target or harass people. And I said, no, these technologies should be used for in that context, because I remember when I was in high school, they wanted JP through IBM wanted us to I talked about the toothpaste hole. He wanted us to basically fool people and make them spend twice the money. Now, here is the thing. If I sell you a painting and you pay me $250 million and you don't take a loan from the bank to pay that, or if you're a billionaire and you take, I don't know, loan from the bank, and then let's say it's against the artwork that you buy that later can be confiscated, like the art was confiscated from the oligarchs, then I have no problem to charge you $250 million. Yes, I can make I don't know, air defense system for a housing first with guerrilla gardening. It's, not to like 5%, 5%. Money time. um, and so yeah, but this is the type of thing that I don't have problem to charge $250 million. In fact, I had a joke about this, where all the modern art, a person throws, let's say, a brush, and because I like a conceptual art, then it can be a great concept. I mean, if that brush buys, I don't know, the sovereign infrastructure for an entire country that has houses that with solar panels, ecosystemic, Adobe, I don't know, lime wash, whatever. Um, but the issue to address is the targeting of the infants and all these. But when it comes to making a household pay twice for the tooth pasta, when it's not a luxury tooth pasta, and I don't know how much petroleum is in there anyway. And it wanted this type of innovation, which to me it meant that I was taking a billions of step back. Um, but they had nice Dutch chocolate at the machine at the IBM. And, however, um, those who've heard it on Spirit of Matter is the same story. However, the other people that were um, way more technological, they had innovations for people to be able to communicate with the disabled. And those worked on the nervous system. But the JPs wanted the tooth pasta to increase the whole of the tooth pasta to make people pay twice. Now, here is the good thing about this. That technology, that nervous system based technology, is already the voice to skull, but unfortunately what the voice to skull was used to target people. Only now if the Epstein list is out is a good call to action to declassify this technology and make sure that it's used only for people to be able to communicate with their loved ones, to facilitate communication rather than to target individuals or to sex traffic them in a way that prevents them from even being able to speak. And so if when I was in high school they would develop this technology, they probably did, but it was probably classified technology. And there were these young students that just want to develop technology is supposed to be benefic. JP preferred the tooth pasta type of innovations, and I ended up contributing nothing to the youngpreneurs. Um, yeah, Chiron on my Mercury. And the Mercury hour by now, probably. So, yeah, Venus hour.